Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm here again with another episode of Rudy's Common Sense. And today is a very, very exciting one and a very important one because Glenn Beck is something very, very special. Glenn Beck is a voice that you have to hear and you have to listen to. And I don't care if you agree with him or you don't agree with him. Over the years, he's someone where if you're an intelligent person, you want to know what Glenn Beck thinks about it. Now, I mostly agree with him, but I know people who don't, and they want to know what he thinks because he has a very, very deep and very, very thoughtful analysis of everything that's going on. And he's probably going to be very surprised that I've read just about every one of his books. And probably the one I like best is The Christmas Sweater. And I've read it 3 times at Christmas. I put it in, Glenn, with Mr. Scrooge. And watching It's a Wonderful Life. You're one of the new additions that I added to it. I added The Night Before Christmas was the last one because when I was mayor, I used to read it to homeless children, and I got to play Santa Claus a few times. But I have about 4 or 5 Christmas things that I have to read. The Christmas Sweater, I just recommend to people, if you don't cry, there's something wrong with you. You're a much deeper man than even your fans know. And that's why I want to ask you something, because I'm almost coming to you for therapy. I spend a lot of time now, which I never did before, either getting up in the middle of the night or waking up in the morning and not recognizing sometimes the country I'm in. When I read things like he puts out 26 or 28 executive orders to basically set out a Biden economic plan for about 20 private businesses that looks like the Stalin 5-year plan, the Mao 10-year plan. When did a president of the United States start putting out economic plans for the U.S.?
This president is telling, and first of all, let me just say, it's an honor to hear those words coming from you, Rudy. We've known each other for a long time, but that's very kind of you to say those things. The important thing, and you know this, Biden is not running the show here. This is the 3rd term of the Obamas, and he's, as Barack Obama has said himself, he's just finishing the job of the fundamental transformation. It's very telling to listen to what Joe Biden said before his speech in front of Congress a few weeks ago. When he was getting ready, he called the trusted members of the press in, and he said, look, I know you're not going to agree with me on this, but the real test here is to see if a country like ours, that is free like ours, can compete against the authoritative countries like China as they come online. And he said, a lot of people aren't sure. Well, he was just planting that seed of doubt, and he has said that several times now publicly. He even said it in that speech obliquely, but he said it in the speech. This is, you and I have known big business people for a long time, and big business people have said for 20, 25 years, China is the model. And that's what's happening. We are being turned into a Chinese-style state. The America that you and I grew up in, I fear, is gone. And unless we have some miracles and people peacefully stand up, and we don't have any funny business with the next election or two, we may not be going back to something we recognize.
Well, this last week or so, Cuba erupted. And the difference in reaction by the United States, our government, I don't mean the people of the United States, this is something that we've been waiting for, Democrat and Republican administrations, for 50 years. And this looks like a very legitimate grassroots uprising. I think it was 30 different cities. They're not politicized people, they're working people. They're starving like Russia and Poland were. and they're holding signs that tell you what, get rid of communism, get rid of the Castros, and they're holding American flags. And unlike some of our Americans, they're not burning them. They're holding them with great respect.
It's amazing to me, Rudy, how many people overseas that are looking for freedom, they know who the United States is. They know that we're not a perfect nation, but they know what we're supposed to stand for. Hong Kong, Venezuela, now Cuba, all holding the American flag. And it's what's sad is this. If Trump would have been in office, I think you would have seen the end of authoritarian rule in Cuba. We are missing the same opportunity that was given to the world and to the people that want to be free. We're missing it again intentionally, like we did under Barack Obama with Iran. When the people rose up in the streets, all they need is the Pope, Margaret Thatcher, Ronald Reagan standing up and saying, we are with you. When they know they have that outside support from the world and from the leaders of the world, it changes the dynamic. You know that as well as I do.
Absolutely. I mean, I had the same exact reaction you had back, I think it was in 2014 when the Iranian uprising took place. I worked very closely for 12 years with the MEK, who are trying to overthrow the government and have gone through hell, including being killed for it. And it was a great moment. And he turned their backs on them. Now, in contrast to that, in 2017, or maybe it was January 2018, uprisings began again. And all Trump said is, I respect these people. They're seeking freedom from a terrible regime. Now, his State Department wouldn't let him go any further. I'm sure he would love to have said regime change. I think Pompeo said it and then had to withdraw it, but at least he said it. And since then, there have been 240 protests in Iran. It spread all over the country. And I know the left-wing press doesn't want to tell you this, but the Iranian regime is under a lot of pressure, which is the reason they picked a mass murderer, because the Ayatollah couldn't afford a moderate this time. He feels he's under great pressure. The only thing that can help him is Biden.
I will tell you, and that's happening. I will tell you that it takes somebody like Trump and who Donald Trump was over in Israel. It takes somebody that will do what Reagan did. You know, I know you have heard the story. I'm pretty sure you did, Mr. Mayor, of Ronald Reagan's flight over to Berlin and when he was going to speak at the wall, and they said, don't say it, and he kept putting it in and they kept taking it out, and he just ad-libbed at the end, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. It requires somebody to say the things that the State Department and all of the other nations around the world are too cowardice to say. And that is the truth. People should be free. We are with the people on the streets. Let them have freedom and listen and respect the people who are on the streets.
Instead, we have Black Lives Matter, the 1619 movement, Hannah, New York Times reporter, I've forgotten, embracing communism and saying, Hannah Jones described Cuba as one of the best governments in the world. So the only good thing I can see about this is it's drawing them out. You know, I started saying a year ago that Black Lives Matter is a communist Marxist movement. When I first said it, people would look at me like I was Joe McCarthy, if they know who he is. All of a sudden, you go look at Patrisse Cullors. She actually tells you she's a Marxist. She's not afraid to say it. I'm a Marxist.
You know, when I was at Fox, I think it was 2009, and I actually put them into it a bit, but I was honest and right about it in the end when I said these are Marxists. They're not just radicals. They are Marxist revolutionaries. And I said there's going to come a time when they're going to take the mask off because they're dying to tell you who they really are. They are so arrogant and so convinced that they're going to win that they're just waiting for the opportunity to say yes. And it is Marxism because capitalism has failed, has caused all this misery. And we are with Castro. We are with the communist schemes of the past. And that's what you're seeing right now. The mask is fully off. That's why they needed Biden.
It's time to take a short break. How much equity do you have in your home? 50,000, 100,000, more? Cybercrime experts are alerting homeowners that the more equity you have, the greater the chance foreign and domestic criminals will come after you. Title theft is one of the fastest growing crimes. Home Title Lock, America's leader in home title protection, is alerting homeowners they could already be a victim and not know it. Here's how it goes down. First, cyber thieves search hundreds of public databases for high equity homes. Next, they pull your home's title that's online. They forge your signature stating you sold your home, and they take out loans using your equity. You're not covered by insurance, your bank, or common identity theft programs. Protect your most valuable asset. Register your address now to see if you're already a victim and receive a complete title history of your home, a $100 value free. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. That's HomeTitleLock.com. Thank you for returning to this fascinating interview with Glenn Beck. And Biden himself, he's the last Democrat I would have thought of that would have accepted this 10 or 15 years ago. I don't respect him. I think I know him for 35 years. He was introduced to me as the dumbest man in the Senate. He never disappointed me. I knew he had cheated in law school because his law school classmate was my chief of staff. I knew he had cheated his way entirely through law school. It wasn't just a one plagiarism. He said he never would have graduated law school if he hadn't charmed the dean and his wife, and they let him do makeup papers, which he largely plagiarized in order to get through law school. Which is, I think, why he has a chip on his shoulder about being smart. It's why he lies about his IQ and all that stuff. But I never thought of him as a dishonest man, and I always thought of him as a essentially middle-class guy, middle-of-the-road guy. Now, I don't know if this is a product of his dementia or he's gone there.
There's two things. I think, but three, actually. Let me go through them. First, he is a corrupt individual. This is the most corrupt administration we have had, bar none. And we've had corrupt administrations in the past. What the media is doing with Hunter Biden and the laptop and everything else, that is coming out, as you know, that is coming out, and it is his laptop, and it does implicate his dad. But I think between that, the second factor of, I think his family, I don't know about his lovely wife, Jill, but I think his son for sure and his children, it's almost like, I don't know if you ever watched the show on HBO, Succession.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You've seen it?
Yeah.
The father-son relationship is almost identical there. I'm a former alcoholic, a recovering alcoholic. And you would never do that to an alcoholic. You would never put your son into those situations where he's bound to find trouble. He's bound to get extra pressure. You would never do that unless you were in a completely different kind of relationship that is very unhealthy. So he is corrupt. He is in a weird relationship with his family. And the last thing is his family clearly, I think it's really sad. If I were in that state and my children allowed me to run for president or be the president, somebody in his life, nobody cares enough to say, look, Grandpa, we have to take the keys away from you now. He is a danger. He's in danger to our national security. But that's what the Democrats needed. The Democrats needed somebody who was a trusted face that everybody could say, well, he's just a nice old man that likes ice cream too much, and he's not going to do anything. Well, they knew I don't think he actually knows all the time exactly what's going on, and he's not running it. He doesn't get up and go into the office and say, gang, here's what we're going to do. He gets up and says, well, what are we doing today? What are we?
Yeah. Having been in the Oval Office, my first time with President Reagan, who I worked for and who is probably, I was so young, maybe I don't even evaluate him correctly. He's like a great giant to me. I think he's about 8 foot tall. And I remember his correcting a speech of mine. I can almost remember every word that he said. And then having been in the Oval Office a lot with President Trump, and President Trump is such a open, gregarious personality. I mean, it's quite clear who's making the decisions when you're with President Trump. I mean, there's no doubt. And nor does he have a problem with making decisions. I can't imagine. I try to visualize what goes on in the White House now. And I try to visualize, these people are intelligent people. They've all probably been to a nursing home to visit a relative I have an ex-mother-in-law in a nursing home where I love very much, and I visit her a lot. I mean, there are people in that nursing home in better shape than Joe Biden.
Yeah, it's really sad. It's dangerous. I can't imagine what our allies are thinking, but it's something I never thought I would see. And, the only other time that this happened was with Woodrow Wilson. He was completely incapacitated. He was completely checked out after a stroke, and his wife ran the White House. And at that time, there were enough in his own Democratic Party that said, hey, you can't do it. But only when he announced that he was going to run for a third term. And he didn't announce it. His wife did. How they thought they were going to get away with it. Amazing.
Same problem. I mean, the family had to realize it. I've often thought many of the things you were just saying, particularly the part about the kid being prone to drugs, which was known at a very young age. Now, a good father, even if you're a corrupt man, but a good father, you don't put your kid in that position. You go find somebody in Washington. Plenty of people in Washington would have been a bad for him. I mean, I know mafia guys who wouldn't put a child that was too delicate in a position. They keep them out of the family because they were too delicate. They couldn't handle it. They were better fathers than Joe Biden.
Yeah, and I don't know who's controlling the situation. I think Joe is. I really think it is succession. But it's sad because it's obviously, from reading just some of the stuff that we have verified is from Hunter Biden, reading those few emails, it is so sad to see that relationship. It's tragic. And unfortunately, it's dragging all of us down with it.
So I look at it, and it's a very short administration so far. It seems like it's 3 or 4 years, but it's only been half a year. But it seems like a lot of analogies to Carter. I mean, very similar lack of decision making, discomfort with an America that you can be proud of and love, problems. But how much worse is it than Carter, who I think up until Obama I thought was the worst president, and then Obama, and it seems like this is like a quantum leap beyond that.
This is the culmination of 100 years of work. This administration, I don't think if Joe Biden was in his right mind, he would be agreeing to all of the anti-American stuff that is happening right now. I mean, maybe he would, I don't know, but not the Joe Biden of 10 or 20 years ago. He wouldn't have been doing this. But this is a 100-year plan. I have a book, Rudy, from Stuart Chase. I don't know if you remember who Stuart Chase is, but he's the guy who coined the term the New Deal. And he was in the Roosevelt administration, and he wrote a book, When the War Ends, The Road We Are Traveling. And if you remember, that was the slogan of Obama's second run for the presidency, the road we're traveling. And I found that interesting because in the end of this particular book, it talks about how we're going to need many more studies before the mystery of this managerial revolution can be cleaned up. We have something we have to call now X, which is displacing the system of free enterprise all over the world. We don't know yet what to call it, but it is the road in which we're traveling. Now, listen to how they describe this. And he says in the book, this is the model for what America will become, and it's too late to change it. See if this sounds familiar. Free enterprise changed into System X, a strong centralized government, an executive arm growing at the expense of legislative and judicial arms, the control of banking, credit. I don't know if you saw last week, but they said they want to take the credit. Crazy. The underwriting of employment by the government, the underwriting of Social Security, the underwriting of food, housing, medical care, the use of deficit spending technique to finance the underwritings, the abandonment of gold, the control of foreign trade by the government, the control of natural resources, the control of energy sources, the control of transportation, agricultural production, the control of labor organizations, heavy taxation with special emphasis on the estates and incomes of the rich. Not much taking over of property or industries in the old socialistic sense. The formula will appear to be control without ownership and state control of communications and propaganda. He says it's too late to turn around. This is 1945. It's too late to turn around, and I don't know how long it'll take, but this is the seed that we have planted.
And that is the name of that, so people can get it.
This is called The Road Which We Are Traveling by Stuart Chase. And Rudy, it is something that they wanted to do with Wilson. They put some more in with FDR at this time. Then Obama really set the table, made the big change of healthcare, and now they're just finishing the plan. And they think that they are going to win. I mean, I've never seen a group of more arrogant people in my life.
You know, I think that one part of the hatred of Trump, the pathological hatred of Trump, he interrupted the plan.
If you look at what the World Economic Forum is now calling the Great Reset, which is this, they are so far down the road, and these corporations, they don't care anymore. There's no loyalty. I've always stuck up for the free enterprise system, and corporations are corporations. They can do what they want to do and get out of the way of government. This is different. They are merging in some regards with the government. And that's really dangerous, really dangerous.
Your observations are absolutely correct. Last week when he put out the economic plan, which is almost exactly what you just read from Stuart Chase, I was really shocked because I'm preparing this course on communism, and they very much do the economic planning so they can centralize power. I mean, the person who sets the agenda can control the agenda.
Yeah. Did you see the Financial Times last week, where the op-ed in the Financial Times was all about central planning and how we have to get the central planning right? They are not ashamed of it. They're not hiding it.
I mean, among other things, it is unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional given just the spirit of the Constitution, which is we divide power between the federal government and the states. And Madison wrote, we do that not to give the states power, but to protect your liberty. We do that so that the states will be a check and balance on the federal government and vice versa. And all of a sudden, I mean, many of these things violate that. We have to hope the courts see it.
But you're going to see, Rudy, you're going to see things, and you know this better than anybody. You're going to see these states like New York, California, they'll go into bed with the federal government, and then they'll get all of the largesse, and states that won't go along with it will have such internal pressure because the federal government will just say, no, you're on your own. You won't do this, this, and this. So you don't get the grants. You don't get the money. And it's going to be difficult.
One of the other things that they announced last week or the week before that was kind of lost in all this but Governor Ricketts of Nebraska has made a very big deal out of this. They have a plan within 12 years. The government wants to own, federal government wants to own 30% of the land for purposes of conservation. That would be that 1/3 of America would be owned by the federal government.
But that's the 30 by 30 plan. They have the 50 by 50. So that's just the beginning. They want 50% of the American landscape. This is so unconstitutional. You know this, Rudy. The Supreme Court has told, it's either 2 or 3 times, has told the federal government to return the land to the states out west. They refuse to do it. And this is why you never want the government to be in charge of everything, because there's nobody to run to. If the government just decides they're not going to do it, there's no police to stop the government from being the rapist.
Well, let's take a short break and then we'll conclude. And I want to ask you, what do you do about it? What's the most effective way for us over the course of the next 3 years to combat it? So we'll be right back with Glenn Beck. It's an interesting interview, isn't it? I accomplished a lot in 2020, exposing the truth, establishing the relationship with you, working tirelessly for America. And I came to know the work and value of the people at American Hartford Gold. You see, you buy gold not only for what you know, but you buy gold for what you don't know. American Hartford Gold is the company you can trust when it comes to buying gold. They sell physical gold and silver delivered right to your door or inside of your IRA. In the precious metals industry, they are the highest rated firm in our country with an A+ from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of satisfied clients. Give them a call and tell them Rudy sent you. And be sure to ask them what I bought. And if you call them right now, they will give you up to $1,500 of free silver on your first order. Folks, these are uncertain times. The one thing you can count on to protect what you have worked so hard for is physical gold and silver. So don't wait. Call them now. Call 833-GOLD-777. That's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Again, that's 833-GOLD-777. Or text Rudy to 65532. Thank you for returning to the interview with Glenn Beck, and I think you remember where we were. I was asking Glenn what you ask me all the time. What can we do? And I'm sure they ask Glenn all the time. What can we do? What can we do? There's all this division in the Republican Party, the libertarians, the conservatives. Unfortunately, I consider the traitors, the ones that I don't even know why they're Republicans. They might as well be Democrats or something else. Is it the Republican Party? Is it a new movement like the Tea Party, which was so effective in 2010? I was almost hoping something like that would emerge, some new freedom group, or maybe a reaction to the freedoms that were taken away from us during the pandemic. Freedom of speech. We don't even have freedom of speech now. I mean, if you and I couldn't have this discussion on ABC, CBS, NBC. No matter what we say, unless we say something that they could use to destroy us, will they report on anything we're saying today? Even if it's very newsworthy.
Yeah, the good news is though, we are going around them. You know, when I first started,
and you are one of the primary reasons for it, Mr. Beck.
Well, thank you. When I first started the Blaze, only Major League Baseball was streaming online. The technology really didn't exist. I mean, we were before Netflix and HBO and everybody else. And it has been a very long, hard road. However, with that being said, there are the impressions and the stories that we can get out directly to people. Now, this is via social media for a lot of it, is bigger than the New York Times circulation every single day. That's why they're targeting. I don't know if you saw the piece from NPR targeting Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire. They are very effective. The Blaze is very effective. Breitbart is very effective. However, I don't think that's going to last. The most important thing that we can do is read Martin Luther King. The biggest setback that we have had in the conservative movement in a long time was January 6th. And it was a group of people who were very passionate, during the speech, and some of them went down, and they were not trying to overthrow the government. Some people, a handful of people, I don't know how many, made a stupid decision to go in and break windows and just do illegal things. That gave Biden the absolute opportunity to start using FISA courts, start intimidating people, and to put all kinds of things into action. They have wanted the right or the Tea Party or whoever to lash out at the government and to lash out and be violent for 15 years. And so the last thing we can do is to be violent.
Oh my gosh!
We must. Yeah, we've
And
got.
we never had been. I mean, we had a great. You look at the Tea Party, or even the Reagan, or even the Trump people in the 5 years he ran.
Never.
They would get extremely emotional. Correct. But I was so proud of the fact we never broke anything. We never. We left those auditoriums in great shape, even though the crowds went crazy.
Rudy, when I did that thing on the mall in Washington, D.C. about, 10 years ago or so, we left the mall cleaner, literally cleaner than it was. Yeah. The federal government told us, because this was during the Obama administration and they hadn't been mowing the mall, my audience called and volunteered to mow the mall. I mean, we're not anti-government people. But anyway, the other thing we have to do is stand. We cannot go along with it anymore. We can't say, oh, well, I'm just going to mind my own business. No, we must stand up. If you're in an office where they say you got to take this anti-white course, this CRT course, and you got to just look for ways where you can be, less white or whatever it is. No, I won't. And I appreciate that you want to do that. But I will not participate in the lies. I will not comply. A woman who saved a bunch of Jewish people in Poland from Auschwitz. She saved about 100 people. She was 16 at the time. I had the opportunity to have her sit down with my children about 10 years ago, because I told my children, now is the time to decide who we are. Are we going to be people that give our grandchildren something to look back at and say, my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, they stood? Or are we going to be the ones that sheepishly go, well, I don't know what I can do? So I brought him over to Auschwitz, and we met with this woman. And she said to me, at the very end of the interview, I said to her, Paulina, I feel like the tree of righteousness is in all of us. And I just don't know how to water it. How do you water it? How do you grow that so you're prepared? And she looked at me perplexed and she said, you misunderstand. The righteous didn't suddenly become righteous. They just refused to go over the cliff with the rest of humanity. That is easily done. What we must do is always remember what we grew up being taught was right and wrong, and then just not participate in the wrong and continue to say what is right, no matter what the cost is. And to do that with a happy Ronald Reagan kind of spirit. The one thing about Donald Trump I didn't understand is I thought he was mean at the beginning. At the end, I realized this guy has the best sense of humor I think I've seen. You're just not used to the president of the United States using a sense of humor like this. And you may disagree with the things that he said, but I think a lot of people missed a really good time.
Yeah, they did.
He was funny.
Well, I tell you, those last couple of sessions that he did, I told him, this is Jackie Mason, this is the Borscht Belt, you can hold that audience for an hour and a half, And half of it is because of your sense of humor. Half of it is imitations, caricatures. I mean, it really was an exceptional gift. And they took that away from him with the pandemic. They took that away from him when the minute the pandemic happened and the closed. I had a meeting with his campaign staff, and I said, we got to come up with an alternative. And I don't think they ever did adequately come up with an alternative.
I don't think I have ever seen a president. I mean, Rudy, you know this because I think I called you. I talked to the White House maybe 5 times. I donated a lot of money for the defense of the president after the election. I mean, my wife and I dipped in deep to try to make the point because I couldn't get it across to anyone in the White House. You're in trouble. They are planning for exactly what happened.
They never anticipated that correctly, Glenn. That's absolutely correct. One of the disasters, I remember the day after the election, he asked me to take over. And I walked in and I said, as a lawyer, where are all the papers? Where are all there weren't any. We had to do a 10-day catch up on them. And that put us in a very, very difficult position. We'll be right back. Not long ago, Mike Lindell, the inventor of MyPillow, and his team fit me for my very own MyPillow. They also introduced me to their wide assortment of other incredible products, like their mattress topper, their sheets, towels, slippers, and more. Sleep is incredibly important to me, and I can assume for all of you. It's time you give MyPillow a try and see for yourself. Listeners have helped build MyPillow into the incredible company it is today, and Mike Lindell wants to give back to all of you. You can get great discounts on MyPillow products by going to mypillow.com right now and seeing each of the specially priced items, including those in the radio listener special square. You're going to see rotational offers up to 66% off on products like their pillows, mattress topper, Giza sheets, but also new products like their slippers, weighted blankets, robes, and waffle blankets. All MyPillow products come with a 60-day money-back guarantee. Enter promo code RUDY for these great specials. That's mypillow.com and use the promo code RUDY. Let's continue our interview with Glenn Beck.
I know I talked to Don Jr. a week before the election, and I said, Don, I've talked to 5 people around your father for a long time in the advisor kind of category, people that had the power and the clout to do something, not just his attorney, not like you. I didn't, expect you to do anything. And I said, I've talked to 5 different people, and they all have the power to advise the president on national security. And this is national security. And I'm telling you about it now. And you say to me that your dad hasn't been talked about, hasn't been told about any of this that I'm sharing with you. I said, you have to ask yourself why. Why is no one around the president saying, for the sake of national security, we've got to be prepared for this kind of an outcome? Because it was all written by them, open, online. All of it.
He was when the Democrats announced and Hillary announced they had like this gigantic legal staff and everything else. He was assured by his campaign that they had recruited those people and that they were prepared. And they lied to him. They were not prepared. Or they didn't understand the enormity, what they meant by prepared and what the Democrats meant by prepared were in 2 different orbits. And highly more professional on the Democrat side. And I was shocked when I got there because I fully expected a much more professional preparation because I've been told it was done. I was told it had been done.
No, I talked to very high-ranking officials in the White House, and nothing, absolutely nothing. It was like talking to a person who had never even thought about this every time I called. Let me ask you, or let me give you an answer to the question that you asked me going in. So what do we do? Rudy, there is, if we have the right attitude and we remain nonviolent, no matter what they throw at us, and we're happy warriors like Reagan was, Here's the thing that will change people. Every single problem we have right now is because we are no longer following the Bill of Rights. There is no right to privacy. There is eavesdropping. They are monitoring us. They are quelling our freedom of speech. And they are now, admittedly, by Joe Biden, in bed with social media. We know go through them. Every single amendment now is being violated, including, what is it, the 6th or the 7th, that says no cruel and unusual punishment. Putting somebody in for January 6th into solitary confinement for 6 months, that is actually cruel and unusual punishment. So we are violating all of those. I suggest that there is a movement that says, look, we don't have to agree on everything. We don't even have to agree on programs. What we have to agree on is the Bill of Rights. Will you stand? Give me 9 out of the 10 in the Bill of Rights. Just give me 9 out of the 10. I will fight by your side. And we have to start fighting for the people, their right to do things and be seen doing it, even if we don't like them. You know, when Bill Maher lost his job at ABC on Politically Incorrect because of the horrible thing that he said about the 9/11 tragedy, I actually, and my audience hated me for this, but I actually stood up for him. I said, look, the name of the show is Politically Incorrect. They say things that make you think that you're not going to like. Now, I think that's a despicable thing, but you don't fire people on a show of politically incorrect comedy, everything else. You don't fire and shut down a show like that. I stood up for him. It only matters and it only counts when you, like John Adams, will stand up and defend people that you don't want to defend. You know, Rudy, I have a big law firm that has represented me for almost 20 years on freedom of speech issues. And we have gone to federal court. We have fought hard side by side. They called me 3 months ago and said, we can no longer do business with you. And we're in the middle of a case. And we said, what are you talking about? We've been partners for 20 years in this. And they said, the firm there are going to be too many consequences for the firm and some of our other clients if you are also our client. I gave them a lecture about John Adams. It fell on deaf ears. If attorneys don't stand up and start defending people that you may not like, you are betraying the entire idea of America.
Absolutely right. You know, classic liberalism. One of the great things I admired about classic liberalism, even though I disagreed on many, many things, was the notion that we'll represent the Nazis, we'll represent the communists, we'll represent the Ku Klux Klan, and one of the Supreme Court justices, it may have been Oliver Wendell Holmes, wrote, your commitment to the First Amendment is not your defense of people you agree with. Your commitment to the First Amendment is your defense of people you disagree with, because those roles can change very easily and very quickly. And I think that wisdom has been lost. I mean, the only one that I see saying that is Alan Dershowitz. He's the only one, and he uses that as an example all the time. And Alan and I go back arguing cases against each other, in court against each other, and debating at Harvard since 1970. And we probably have disagreed on everything. But I always would have been there to defend his right to say what he had to say. And he's there to defend my right to say what I want to say. And that's what being an American is all about.
Rudy, you and I don't agree on everything. I am more of a classic liberal. I want limited government. However, you and I could be friends for a long time and never really have arguments other than, Rudy, that's crazy. I don't agree with you. And you're like, you're crazy. That's the way America is supposed to work. We make cases, we vote honestly, and then whichever side wins, they go in and but they believe in the set of rules which are the Bill of Rights. We no longer have that. Nobody's talking about the Bill of Rights. And that's the real problem. We've got to find something that we can unite around. And it's not going to be policies, these little policies. It's going to be about big, big ideas.
Well, let me leave you with this thought, because I got it from a father of a war hero, about 2 weeks ago. And he said, in a very, very humble way, he said, if my son could give his life to defend the Constitution, people shouldn't feel so bad if they just get thrown off YouTube, or they get thrown off Twitter, or even if they lose their job. I have seen, you talk about lawyers. I've seen this now for 5 years. Lawyers being fired from their law firms because they defended Trump. How about if they voted for Trump and announced it? It's a terrible thing going on. And if we don't overcome this, we'll never unite. And I think you've laid out a very, very constructive way to do it, Glenn. Thank you very much, Glenn, for tonight
God bless you.
and for everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
God bless America.